up. It is not 2004 anymore. It is 2018. 14 years later, your debt balance has gone up. My God, you are fucked. Excuse my French. This is not cool. This is not good. I promised myself I wouldn't cuss. That's the only time I've ever cussed, when I'm talking to my students in the Black Business School. But this is insane. I swear to God. This is not, when I saw that statistic, I swear my head almost exploded because I couldn't believe it, right? So 14 years later, like, you're supposed to be doing good. You're supposed to be chilling. What's the problem? I'm going to give you my theory on what I think the problem is. Culture. Sorry, it's culture. Sorry, okay, yeah, does the government owe us money? Absolutely. Do white folks try to take it from us? Absolutely. Do they harm us and miseducate us in their schools? Absolutely. That's a given. They ain't gonna change though. But y'all wait for them to change. You're waiting for them to change, but they ain't gonna change. That's just what I don't get. Like, you're waiting for the government that can't even help themselves. They can't even keep the government open because they're so busy fighting. And you're waiting for them to come and fix this? Are you kidding me? Are you sick? That's the most dastardly concept I've ever heard in my life, where you're waiting for some entity that has never come through for you to come through for you. I don't get it. Let me keep going. So, nearly half of African American borrowers defaulted, including 75% of those who dropped out of for-profit colleges. So 75% of the kids from the hood who went to these for-profit colleges and did not finish, they pretty much have created one of the greatest wealth transfers in recent American history, outside of mass incarceration and slavery itself. I'm not kidding. You're literally transferring billions of dollars, trillions of dollars out to another community because because you signed up to go to BS Tech University and you didn't finish the degree. They charge you $30,000 a year. You end up $50,000 in debt with no degree in your hand to make enough money to pay back the debt. So you just default. But they got their money when you signed that piece of paper. They got their money from the government the minute you signed that piece of paper. So they don't care if you default or not. They got their money. So let's keep going. That's where the wealth transfer comes into play. Your credit's ruined. Your money's messed up. You're in a bad financial situation. You're going to die in debt. Your family doesn't move forward. Your family actually moves backwards. Their family moves forward because they got $50,000 out of you because you signed up to go to BS Tech University. Now, is it your fault? No, not necessarily, right? You were trying to do good for yourself, trying to do good for your family. You were trying to make a come up, right? But what's interesting and what's ironic is, again, it shapes back to culture, because there are people like me out here. I'm not the only Dr. Boyce Watkins type who could have told you, don't do it. But you see, where this is where maybe white supremacy does step in, is that, mainstream media doesn't want to hear from people like me. Mainstream media would probably want to hear from me if I was a rapper with 25 tattoos on my face, rapping about having babies, mamas, and Lamborghinis, and AK-47s, and all the dope that I can possibly smoke, and all the pills I can possibly take. They would want me then, but they wouldn't want me talking to you as a person who could warn you that going to this for-profit school is going to ruin you. So I think about this because I know young people I mentored where I told them, don't do that. If you do that, do you know what's going to happen? Let me show you the data. But they by that time, the media and all this other stuff has gotten in their head so bad that they don't want to hear it, right? So I don't know what to do. So let's keep going. 10%, a little bit less, 10.5%. So the question is this. Here's the question you must ask yourself. It's really, really important. And I lay this question out heavily because we're kind of in this ideological battle in the community where our culture gets hijacked by people who want to keep you in poverty because they have a mindset that's really divorced from the possibilities of being able to build anything. I want you to ask yourself, a very basic question. How does a person who started off so poor that they didn't have a refrigerator end up in the top 10% of wealth builders? And how does that correlate with the very popular idea, very popular yet inaccurate idea, in my opinion, that being poor means that you're supposed to always be poor? That because you were born poor, you're going to die poor. How do those two connect? How is it that I can have a debate with somebody who wants to tell me about all the reasons why black people are supposed to stay poor, but yet I can show them a person who, and again, this is not a model that was complex. It's not one that can't be easily replicated in your household right now today if you choose to. It's not like it's some sort of elaborate scheme. It's not like she became a Bernie Madoff and built a multi-million-dollar company that was running a Ponzi. She didn't do any of that. She knows nothing about financial literacy. How can this person who started off so poor that her mother didn't have a refrigerator, who knows nothing about financial literacy, nothing about investing, has never owned a business, go from being in the bottom percentile in wealth building to where she had negative wealth in her family to being in the top 10% of all Americans? It's because there was a certain culture in her household that bred a wealth building mindset. It was a culture in her household that whether she knew it or not, whether she sees herself as an investor or not, she was investing every day. The investments were very basic. Pay attention now. I want you to think about this, because I need you to take this home to your children. Her mother invested in her child by saying, I don't care what those other kids are doing and what they're listening to. You're going to be in the library. Her mother invested in her child by saying, I don't care if all the other kids' parents are happy that they made a B. You are supposed to make an A in your class. Let's figure out how we can make this better. Her mother invested in her by saying to her, when you get older, first thing you should do is you should try to buy you a house so you don't waste thousands of dollars paying rent every month. Her mother taught her, and her father too. Her father lived differently from her mother, but her father would talk to her about it. Her father told her, baby, when they ask you how much you want to put in your 401k, max it out. And because she did those three basic things, she's now a millionaire, because her assets minus her liabilities, the value of her home plus the value of her 401k, is $1.1 million. So that's a basic formula for wealth that you can apply in any household in America. So when you tell me that racism is the reason that we can't accomplish anything, I have to tell you that I think that you're wrong, and I think that you've been brainwashed to believe that you should kill your possibilities because you think that being black means that you have no potential in this world. Also, I vehemently reject the notion that America is a country without opportunity. Opportunities are everywhere. But if you convince yourself that there are none, you're never going to look for them, which means you won't see them, which will fulfill your negative expectation of your own outcomes. So let's go back to this chart. Let's talk about this a little bit more. All right, so this article, they have some key findings about black people and student loan debt, and how student loan debt is murdering the black community. How these expensive universities are just eating away at your economic future. So here are some findings, and I know they've got their interpretation. This article looks like it was written by white liberals. I kind of know the writing style. So the white liberal interpretation will always be that it's never ever your fault. There's never ever anything you could do about it. It's always government, and black people are disabled and retarded, and so therefore we as whites, as their parents, as their paternalistic leaders, are the ones who are supposed to implement the policy that will help this pathetic, handicapped, disenfranchised people. That really is the mindset. So this article's kind of written, for other white, it's written by liberal whites to talk to other whites to say we need to do something because these poor people are being harmed, which is fine. I don't care about. I appreciate their support, but I don't see it as empowering. I see it as false hope, in the sense that it leads you to say, that's what we need to do. We need to get the right politicians in office, and they're going to fix all of this. And I don't think the evidence supports that, right? It doesn't mean you shouldn't vote and all those things. You should do that. But at the end of the day, sometimes if you're so focused on a government solution to a problem in your community, you miss out on what you can do in your community to fix the issue while you wait for the government to show up. So here's some things that they found in this study. 5 key points. Number 1. They found that African American students are more likely to borrow than their peers. So let me read this to you. And I'm losing my voice, so I got to keep drinking water. So I hope y'all can forgive me for that. I know, and I know at some point there's gonna be some black woman in here who I love black women to death. Some sister in here is gonna say, "Boyce, I'm gonna mail you some lemon tea." So I appreciate you offering that, because I probably do need to drink some tea. All right, so regardless of the type of institution first attended, African American students were more likely to borrow than their peers. Differences that speak to the disparities in the levels of financial means that African American students have upon entry, which is true. That's an accurate statement, right? We have less money, so we're more likely to borrow. Okay. African American borrowing rates are higher than those of other students, even at public institutions, which typically carry lower price tags than private options. Even at community colleges, more than 60% of African American students borrow, compared to less than half for white and Latino students. So when they get to the point where they're showing borrowing rates, who borrowed the most, basically African Americans, let's start with whites and everyone else. So whites and Hispanics borrowed 57 and 58% respectively. 57% of whites borrowed, 58% of Hispanics borrowed, 60% overall. African American, it was 78%. The highest borrowing took place at private for-profit institutions, where 95% of the students who went to private for-profit institutions borrowed money. That is driven by the fact, in my opinion, from what I've seen from the kids I've mentored, in different situations, it's driven by the fact that they don't know the game, so the game gets run on them, where they pretty much say, it's $25,000 a year, but just sign this piece of paper and you can come to school for free. The number two category where students borrow the most, black students borrow the most, is at public four-year institutions. The least percentage of borrowing is at public two-year institutions. All right, number two, the typical African-American borrower made no progress in paying down their loans. Borrowing for college is not inherently bad if it unlocks opportunities that are otherwise available, and if the borrower can retire their debt in a timely manner. Unfortunately, Table 2 shows that 12 years after entering college, the median African-American borrower owed more than they originally borrowed. In contrast, the typical Latino and white student have made progress retiring their debt. So white and Latino students are chopping away at the debt. Chop, 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 chop. Black students, the debt is sitting there just marinating and growing like this fungus in your kitchen sink, and you're scared to touch it because now it's much bigger than it used to be. Although this problem is not new, the situation has gotten worse. With the African-American students who began college in 2003, 2004, the ones who began college, let's say who graduated, this began college in 03, 04, which means you graduated 07, 08. They owed 113% of what they originally borrowed. By comparison, African-American borrowers who started in 95, 96 owed 101% a dozen years later. So the inability of black people to pay back student loans is nothing new. This is a long-held tradition for whatever reason. It's numerous complications, right? We don't have as much inheritance as whites have. We don't get the same economic opportunities that whites get. We also have really horrifically bad spending habits as well, and really just bad ways of managing the money that we do have. Seriously, it's one thing if you talk about what poor people do with their money, and poor people, at least they have some sort of excuse for why they're broke. I know rich people. I know people that have high incomes, educated black people with high incomes who are living paycheck to paycheck. So the question becomes, at what point do you sort of say, well, what can I do to kind of manage this, right? So if you want to look at the other data, for whites, it's 65%. So 12 years after graduating, white students owe 65% of what they originally borrowed. Hispanic Latino students owe 83% of what they originally borrowed. Black students will owe 113% of what they borrowed. So what this does is this questions the fundamental idea that going to college is going to be better for your economic future. It might make you happier in certain ways. Maybe you get a job you couldn't get without the degree. It may make you proud. Look, mama, I got a degree. Look at me. These people gave me this piece of paper. But the question is, if you went to college in order to achieve economic outcomes for yourself, does this kind of defeat the purpose? Because here's the issue, right? Let's say that you owe $30,000 in student loan debt, and then 12 years goes by, it's 113% higher, so now it's $35,000. And you can't touch it. You're scared of it. Your credit's horrible, so you can't buy a house. You can't really make the moves you want to make. You're stuck in your job. You're living paycheck to paycheck, and you're kind of in this situation where you have to kind of look back and say, okay, how did this happen? Why can't I fix this? And the thing is that you're talking about paying back $35,000 in debt when the average American can't even save $2,000 in their bank account. So ultimately, I think you got to backpedal and kind of say, okay, is there a better way to proceed with this? Like, what did you do wrong? What happened along the way? We know the system's flawed, right? We can talk about where the system's flawed. That's easy. That's the easy conversation, to talk about the system being flawed. But you can never get so caught up in talking about the flaws of the system that you don't talk about ways you can adjust to the system, right? Let me tell you some things that I did that kind of helped me in terms of getting where I wanted to get to have a positive net worth, because I went through that. I had a couple $100,000 in student loan debt because I went to school a long time. I went to school from the age of 18 to the age of 31. And I don't regret it because I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot of great stuff. I met a lot of great people. And my PhD has paid off in numerous ways ever since I got it. So this is not anti-education or anything else. But here was the thing. Number one, my assumption in college was, if I'm here and I'm taking on all this debt, I'm not going to waste my opportunity. And that led to contention. I didn't have a lot of friends in college because all my black male friends, culture, let's talk, I'm sorry, black people, sometimes you have a crappy culture. Y'all know what I'm talking about. All my friends thought I was a nerd for wanting to be in the library for 6 hours a day. But my Chinese friends, I knew people. I see Chinese students in the library all night. I'd see, Nigerian and Jamaican students in the library all night. I saw Indian students in the library all night. My African American friends were like, "Let's go to the club, y'all. Come on, y'all. Let's go, y'all. Let's go to the step show." Whatever. And or my friends would pledge. I remember, and it's not anti-Greek at all. It probably sounds anti-Greek, but that's just what I remember. Because everybody asked me to pledge a fraternity. I got literally invited to every single fraternity, and I thought about all of them. But I was like, it didn't add up to me. I was like, wait, so you're telling me I got to give you money that I don't really have, and you're going to beat me up for 6 straight weeks and keep me from going to class and keep me from getting enough sleep and humiliate me so I can wear a jacket and be your friend? Like, I'm already your friend. Like, I don't understand that. And it wasn't like me being insulting. It just didn't add up to me. And I would see how much time people put into that. And I would say, well, I guess it's okay to do what you want to do. That's cool. Like, there's a lot of Greek people in here watching, so I ain't dissing y'all at all. But y'all know what I'm talking about. You ever see people that just get so carried away with it, like, you really think they came to college just to be Greek? And I remember thinking that when I was 19, 20, I remember thinking, like, you're not going to have a very good life. Like, you're going to be kind of screwed. You're not ever going to really get ahead because you're not making any investments in your future. If you plant no seeds, you will have no harvest. If you don't plant any seeds, you won't have anything to eat later on. So my thought was, I want to eat good later, so I'm going to plant everything I can get so I can have a big old harvest when I'm in my 30s and in my 40s. My friends did not plant seeds. Culture. Why is it that right now, as I'm talking to you, again, 200 or 300 people watching this, but if I was a rapper talking about what woman I had sex with last night and how many mollies I take every Tuesday, I would have 20,000 people watching this, right? Culture. Wealth building is a culture, just like gang culture is a culture, just like hip hop is a culture, just like white supremacy is a culture. Wealth building is a culture. Do you have, as a community, the culture for wealth building? No, you don't. Black people do not. We do not. Now, can you, as an individual, have a culture like that in your household? Absolutely. But you got to do things different. If you do what everybody else is doing, you're going to get what everybody else is getting. That's pretty much the fundamental rule of the physics of life. The physics of life say if you do what everybody else is doing, you're going to have what everybody else has. And everybody else ain't got nothing. Right? So some differences, some variations were, number one, when I was in school, I didn't study a couple hours every couple of days like my friends did. I studied 6-7 hours a day because my thinking was, if I'm going to go work for that white man when I graduate and I'm going to work 8 hours a day for him, I can work 6 or 7 hours a day for myself. A lot of people don't think that. They think studying 6 hours a day is too much. That's insane. That's an extremist. But why? Why is it extremist for you to spend 6 hours on your own dream, but it's not extreme for you to spend 8 hours on that white man's dream? That doesn't make any sense. or your boss's dream. I'm not gonna make it a racial thing. Just somebody else's. It doesn't add up. But it does add up when you focus on the self-esteem issue, right? What else did I do? The minute I learned how to start a business, I said, this is it. That's it. If I learn to start a business, I have business owner friends who they're not trying to make, $100,000 a year. Some of them are making $100,000 a month. So I said, if I learn how to start a business, I can get access to economic opportunities that I'll never get on a job. So I literally, and I didn't figure this out till I was in my 30s and I had a PhD. So I just basically I humbled myself and treated myself.